Okay, here we go. This is Dr. Anthony Rodriguez from the Global Impact Factor Alliance. This is our Thursday night diaspora talks, talks of unity, the African diaspora, the one Africa, one diaspora, one unity. I hope you're able to make it this evening. I'm going to flip to a quick video and then we'll begin in a few minutes. We'll continue our conversation on Agenda 2063 and some of the things we've learned from that agenda. I hope you can enjoy this particular video. And as we are used to doing, let's start our evening off with some words from
that we are not ready to take over our Africa. Where are we going to be defeated? Financially. We don't have the financial resources that are needed to build and implement the continental agenda. The rest are ready. China is ready, Europe is ready, India is ready, all other nations are ready to move into Africa. You saw Russia inviting all the African heads of states last week. Now we kind of like that. Some of them are saying, oh, why is Russia? I want you to understand that. We need to have choices. What has happened in the past, look at former French colonies. They have no choices. Their choice is France, and only France. And that's why we have continued to be exploited, because we didn't have choices. So let the other players come. Africa is open. However, when they come to Africa, they must come behind the Africans.
That's right.
They cannot be in front of the Africans.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And the only way they can be behind the Africans, because we have stood up and we have come together and united ourselves. We have come together and pulled our monies together. We are not poor people by any stretch of imagination. A million people with $1,000 is $1 billion.
That's right.
Now do that year in and year out. This is what communities that believe in themselves, that's what we do. That's something that we have failed to do as a race. The onus is on us to seriously have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror. We do not have time, my brothers and sisters. This time is do or die. If we do not come together this time, when we open up and start implementing the AFCFTA in July next year, they're coming in for a complete sweep. Let me remind you that you don't go to China and find black people controlling the Chinese development agenda. You don't go to Mexico, India, Europe. You therefore must not go to Africa and find non-Africans controlling the African continental agenda. Unless if you choose to vacate your place, that place that has your name, that place that says what is in Africa belongs to you, and that if anybody is going to come tap into it, they must come behind it. You must not go to Africa and be invited to work for a Chinese, to work for a European man. No, you must drive the African continental agenda. Keep in mind, there has never been a continental agenda, period. The Continental Development Plan is being made as we speak. The continental projects are being created as we speak. And our leaders are saying the children of Africa must be on the driver's seat when it comes to the Continental Development Plan. The ball is in your court. We have a responsibility to come together. We don't have a choice. We can no longer afford to dislike each other. We can no longer afford to be suspicious of each other. We must understand that a problem in DRC is an African problem. A problem in Cameroon is an African problem. A problem in Somalia is an African problem. And guess what? The only people who can address those issues
Okay, people,
is
this is
us, the
Dr. Rodriguez
diaspora.
again, and here we go.
It's
I
very
know, as I
difficult for
stated before,
somebody
we
in the
love to start
DRC
our
who's
talk on
struggling to make
Thursday
a living
nights.
to start
To
thinking
start our
continental.
talk, hearing some words from Dr. Arikana Shimbori. Quote, this is Dr. Anthony Rodriguez. I am with the Global Impact Factor Alliance. As you've been hearing from me recently, and at least every Thursday, we've been going over the first continental report on the implementation of Agenda 2063. We actually treated it almost from an exegesis standpoint. We went to every page from the beginning until we came to the appendix. We're right now in the appendices where we may speak of. But tonight, I'm hoping that we may have a guest. I'm for all guests, if you should ever join in, you can always use the application. There's a space that says speak. If you want to join the conversation directly, just click speak. I will see it eventually. And once I see you've requested to speak, I'll send you a link. You'll just click in the link to come into the conversation. You will need, at minimum, a camera and a microphone to be connected in. But let's continue where we left off on last week. I'm going to share my screen with you right now. And while my screen is being shared, uh, okay, so we will be going back to the agenda, the aspirations. But before we do this, I want to talk very briefly in general terms. We don't need, well, maybe we do need to reflect on our history a bit, reflect on what got us to this point. How are we here today? And why are we here today? And what does it all mean? COVID 19, 2020, since March the 12th, specifically, that's for me specifically, when our institution was notified that we have to do something. And the thing we did was to shut down the entire operation. We moved approximately 10,000 students. We'll say maybe 30% was already online. So we moved about 7,000 students over a period of a spring break from physical in-person classes to online for COVID-19. And we saw the same thing happen across the nation, across the globe. We're in the middle of a pandemic that many has all the variety of conspiracy theories, and most of them are pure nonsense. But we have all this happening right now. And I'm asking myself the question, what does it all mean? I mean, who is it for? What should we be learning and taking from this moment in time? I pray that your personal families and you are physically well. I pray that the COVID-19 hasn't touched you directly or specifically. I pray for any members of your family who may be affected, that they're going to come through this. But in them coming through this COVID-19 experience, what are we to learn from it? Is there something here? Is there a message here for the African diaspora, for Africa itself, for the Agenda 2063? Is there a takeaway here beyond? Is there a takeaway here beyond just finding a cure, just finding a vaccine, just finding a potion that we can go on to our regular lives? I mean, is that more than just that? Now, some of us, we've been through a pandemic before. Some of you were through the virus of AIDS. Some of you were through measles and mumps and smallpox, malaria. All those things were E. coli. All of those were different forms of viruses and pandemics that we as a nation has gotten through, as a world, as a global population of citizens. But this COVID 19 is coming upon us when we think we have it all figured out. We think that we know every route, every way, and we think we have the answer. The operation here, at least in the West, if you have a headache, you've got a pill. You feel bad, here's a pill for feeling bad. You feel good, there's a pill for feeling good, better. You sneeze, there's a pill to stop sneezing. There's always a pill, a quick fix, a quick fix. Some psychologists have said and indicated, and I can't give you any names, but it's been stated part of the reason for the addiction to drugs in the West is the notion of making it fix, making it right away. People drink. Why they drink? Not just to be drinking and having a social time, but it's to cover up something. Sometimes they drink to get their real self out. Well, you want the real you? Well, take a pill. And now here is the COVID 19 that's on top of us. And I'm saying it's more on the agenda than just finding a pill, finding a vaccine, although that's very important. Some of the elements of the importance when it comes to COVID 19, in my opinion, is an issue of unity, is an issue of operating on a global stage. Right now, I think America is on the chopping block, so to speak. America is on display to see how we respond. It used to be the world will watch America. Now I say America, I mean the United States of America. The world will watch the United States of America and address its operational plans, address its decision making. But can the world look at America right now and make choices and decisions? We're trying to fight for normalcy. That's what we are saying. We want to get back to normal. We want to go to the movies again. We want to go in crowded bars. We want to go in the park. We want to have group meetings. And just look at the irony of this right now. All these things that we want to do. Just roll the mind back about 2 months, 2.5 months, maybe 3 months. You go to any public space, you look at many people gathered, and what do you see? Half of the people on their cell phones around the same table, disconnected. Just think about it. And here we are today. We want it back to normal. What is normal? What is it for us to be doing right now in this particular space and time? I pretend that right now there's an opportunity in COVID 19, in the cover of a pandemic, that those of us who have been pressing to do some great things, who've been pressing to make some great changes, who've been pressing to get their voices heard, now might be just that time. The loud shouted voices have been silenced, and your voice can is now being given an opportunity to rise up. What does it all mean? As we look at this, the founding fathers of the Organization of African Unity, and if you think of the history of how it came about, the unfortunately, the leaders of the African Union, unfortunately, didn't realize that there are several names that should be in this as the founding fathers. Dr. Eric Williams should be on here. W.E. Du Bois should be on here. Marcus Garvey should be on here. I mean, names such as those should be on here. Che Guevara should be on here. Malcolm X should be on here. Again, I'm not fully sure exactly what they're saying here, but there's a lot of founders of the African Organization of Unity, so to speak. So what's happening here right now? Let's just reflect back to what we have done so far, and let's see if we can tie in Agenda 2063 and COVID-19 and the next steps. Now, I'm gonna give the shout out, as I always do, to the African Diaspora Development Institute and Dr. Sharon Burry Ko. She has a voice that is magnificent. She has a message that's also magnificent. It's just a matter of us pulling together the organizational support that she needs to make some change. I believe in this cover of COVID-19 is just the cover that the ADDI needs right now to make a move, to shake up the agenda. We speak of a paradigm shift. What's a paradigm shift? We speak of if you read any journal, any scholarly article, They love to bounce that word around, a shift. But a shift in a paradigm is when we step away from the normalcy of what we've been doing. See, we won't be going back to normal. We go back to normal. That is not a paradigm. Is we shift from the normalcy of what we think it ought to be, and we move into a new space of what it could be and should be. You can almost put it in this way. I've heard it said, and I've used this term myself many times. If you can see the invisible, you can do the impossible. Now that's a paradigm shift. That type of change that we need right now. I must say one thing about the African Union Agenda 2063. They have indeed used some magnificent uh, photographs. They have certainly used some magnificent photographs. Let's see if we can move down into where we left off. Tonight, I'm going to go directly to the appendices, and we may just look at one country. And I don't want to, we can look at Ghana. Let's say I want to go to the first country. We will pick up where we left off and continue looking at the agenda one country at a time. I know in last week I identified some key. I think somebody's trying to speak. Let's see. Hold on, please. No. I know on, let's take a look. Oh, I see Anthony Gallion, Ayodele is on. Mr. Anthony Gallion, if you can hear my voice, if you want to speak, just let me know. I can send you. I just sent you an invitation, Mr. Gallion. You've just been sent an invitation. I'll send it again just in case you missed the first one. I sure would like you have you on if you so desire. And I'll see when you pop up. I'll bring you in. Now, what I want to do is to go to where we left off at the appendices. Anthony Gallion has joined the room. Mr. Gallion, I just saw you join the room. Part of the requirements of joining Mr. Gallion, you have to have your camera operational.
Okay.
So once you have the camera, I'll know it and I'll bring you in and we'll introduce you, okay? Thank you for being so effective and efficient, Mr. Gallion. And while I know you're coming on, let me just stop a second and let the people know about Anthony Gallion. This is a young person I met about 6 years ago, maybe a bit more, walking the halls of the Barbara Jordan Michelin School of Public Affairs at Texas Southern University. And I just found him to be a remarkable young person who was willing to speak as I was willing to speak and just discuss matters beyond the normalcy of what we tend to discuss. Hello, hi, goodbye, what's your major? And I've continued to know Mr. Gallion, and he's been very kind to me, kind that I probably deserve to be. But Mr. Gallion I really am impressed by him, and I hope that Mr. Gallion will become one of the key people in promoting the agenda and transforming the vision of the Africa we want to the Africa that it is, not just today, but for tomorrow and for many to come. So, Mr. Gallion, as soon as I see you, have you fixed your cameras yet, sir?
I'm trying to.
Okay, well,
Can you hear me, Doctor?
I'm hearing you very well. So I'm
Oh,
gonna give
you
you
can hear me, so you just can't see me.
right. And so my guests will want to see you. So I'll give you a few moments to get that camera working. Let me make sure I'm not the one blocking you, because I might be blocking your camera. No, I'm not.
Dr. Rodriguez, you said such kind words, sir. I'm so flattered.
Okay. Well, listen, you are very deserving, Mr. Gallion. You're more than deserving. So as he's trying to work on the camera, I'm gonna segue. I would segue to him audio if I have to, but I'll still continue waiting for him.
That sounds good, Doctor.
So in the meantime, I'm gonna go back to Agenda 2063, where we are, where we had left off, and I'm learning something in my presentations. I'm coming to the realization that, hold on, I just think I made a mess. I'm coming to the realization that to really pull this off the way I need to pull it off, I'm going to have to figure a way to raise sufficient funds to hire some people to help. Because what I've been doing for the past several years is multitasking several projects simultaneously. I believe Mr. Gallion is about trying to get here. Mr. Gallion is on,
I am
and
on.
and I need to figure what he did because somehow my screen just flipped over incorrectly. Okay, Mr. Gallion, welcome, sir.
Am I still on?
No, you are definitely on. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen to bring us up, so we're both up together.
All right.
So, people, let me introduce Mr. Anthony Gallion. All I can say, I hope he can say this is a young man. I can call it my friend.
Wow.
My friend. He is a colleague at Texas Southern University. He was kind enough in December of 2018 when I first had the opportunity to introduce and bring, well, I didn't bring her, Dr. Sherburne Cole found us after we were looking for several months. He was kind enough to operate as the master of ceremonies, they call the MC, but he was more than just an MC. He did a great job for us. And it was truly appreciated. Mr. Galley, I'm going to segue tonight slightly. Let me just share with you what happens. And we have been meeting in this space for almost 2 years now. I've been doing this at some different level. Over the past 4 months, I have focused with laser beam efforts on the African Diaspora Development Institute. And I will now kind of segue, still focused on Africa. I have made a commitment to, through my organization, the Global Impact Factor Alliance, which was founded in 2018, which was birthed by another organization called Kingdom Community Enterprises Limited, which was started in April of 1996.
Wow.
And I plan to, once we have certain structural things done, I plan to provide the background and the backbone of why I say many things I say and what drives me in this direction. But I'm going to hold off on that until we have our website, which is being built. It's just a few things left to be done. And again, even though I'm doing these things, seem like for myself, my interest and my emphasis is to support something I think is bigger than I, which is ADDI, the African Diaspora Development Institute. So I'm said, like I said, every Thursday night, I am an unpaid promoter. I will promote ADDI. If the CEO ever tells me stop, I'll stop then. But before then, I will always give her the promotion. So, Mr. Gallion, please introduce yourselves. And if tonight, I mean, I'm going to give you the space to tell us some of your vision in respect to communication, audio, and broadcast. And the reason I want you to share that with us, there's a piece that we are working on where you're involved with the Radio 96.5 in Buffalo, New York. And this is being said, and I hope the whole team agrees once we get together to have a global African digital dance party. That's the big plan. So please, the agenda and the space is on you.
Well, Dr. Rodriguez, I am so humbled by everything you said. I don't feel that I can add anything to that. I'm honored, but what I can say is how I feel about you. You know, I once read, I love the Bible. I love the Bible. And I once read in the Bible, in Isaiah, it says, it's God talking, and he says, kings will be your foster fathers, and queens will be your nursing mothers. In other words, he's saying that I'm going to give you kings to advise you and provide wisdom for you and mentorship. And the first time I met you, Dr. Rodriguez, that's what I felt in my heart, that this was one of God's kings that he was using to pour into my life. So you've been nothing more than a mentor, a father, and I sincerely thank you for always being there to provide that foundation of knowledge and wisdom and direction that this generation needs.
Whoa. Well,
Hey,
um,
it's true.
thank you, sir. And I say this, in so saying, I guess such a time as this, I think nothing happens by accident.
That's so
So
true.
the same way you met me and I met you. So the purposes we have may be different, but
Yeah.
the end goal is the same. And I think we are moving in that direction
Yes.
because, as you see, we have moved consistently.
Right.
We are moving forward, moving forward. And right now, I think under the cover of COVID-19, I think we offered an opportunity to do some great things. And I think your talents is, I mean, I think you've been prepared for such a time as this. And I really want to see you. I mean, if it's okay with you to share piece of the vision you shared with me and how to use media, radio, TV, and these different things to help reach the diaspora.
Yes, yes. Coming from that background, I carry a bachelor's of arts in radio, television, and film production. And what I didn't know before I got in depth into the field is how scientific and how methodical and strategic it all is. And one thing in specifically that I recall one of my professors saying is that it's all about controlling the narrative, right? It's all about controlling that story that's being told. And I was listening recently to a journalist, Sudanese journalist, so I can't really pronounce her name, but her first name is Zaneb. You might have heard of her, Zaneb. Uh, can't pronounce the last name. But, anyways, she said something that I thought was profound. She's an African journalist. And she said, why is it that we need uh, Europeans to tell our stories? Why can't we use our own experts to tell our own stories and our own narratives? Why isn't African history a part of world history the same way any other form of history is? It's already been proven that the original man came out of Africa and spread throughout the world. There's already data and science behind the Ashango bone that the Africans invented. Mathematics as we know it today in prime numbers. And there's this fascination, and always has been, with the continent. And if we can control that narrative and tell that story about the possibilities of the continent and the opportunities that are on the continent, and to brand the continent in such a way that, because at the end of the day, it's branding, really. I mean, it's a lot of different uh, ingredients to that puzzle. But one thing that moves mountains I've found in my life, and what my background has taught me is the branding and the narrative of what we say is immensely powerful.
Well, so do you think in that branding is necessary that we provide to people more knowledge on the history of Africa? Because if we reflect back to Agenda 2063, there's one of the aspirations and two of the goals speaks directly to promoting the culture of Africa, promoting and to promote the culture, you have to understand the history. So do you think there should be like directed efforts made because the Agenda 2063 speaks of it directly? I think it would be crucial to look at how that look at the agenda and see how what you just said. How do you bridge the two together? Now, how do we make that happen?
I think that's a wonderful question, Dr. Rodriguez. And I graduated back in 2018 from the wonderful Texas Southern University. And let me just start off by saying what Texas Southern University did to me. I grew up in a culture and a society where I was the only person who looked like myself. And as a young person, I wasn't aware of that, but those around me made me aware that I was different. So when I went to Texas Southern University, it was a bit of a culture shock because I never had the opportunity or the privilege to be amongst individuals who shared my skin color, shared my hair texture, my uniqueness, and to understand really what that was. So, Texas Southern University was like looking in the mirror. It was like looking into my own greatness, understanding that these are the halls that Yolanda Adams walked through. These are the halls that Barbara Jordan walked through, that Mickey Leland walked through, that Dr. Thomas F. Freeman walks through, debate coach for Martin Luther King Jr. And the list goes on and on and on. It's an atmosphere of greatness. So I say all that to say, being at KTSU, where I worked as the chief news anchor and news director for a few years, it served as a launch pad for me. And upon graduating, I said to myself, what can I do on my behalf for the African diaspora, what I believe in, and helping shape that narrative for those that look like me. And I met with my team, and we decided to form a startup, Master Plan Media Group. And what our mission is to use mass media technology in the form of digital publishing, in the form of print publishing, whether it be commercials, whether it be newspapers, media outlets that push the narrative of Africa and controlling that narrative. Because if we look at the industries that are telling our stories, the owners behind those businesses don't look like us. So we can't expect an industry that is founded by people who don't look like us to represent us in a way that is fair to us. So that's what my team and I have decided to do. And currently we have a documentary in the works. And funny story, I was on the highway on 59 right here in Houston, Texas, leaving my place. And I see that there's a beautiful billboard on the highway, and it says, "The glory of Spain, the glory of Spain." And I can remember growing up as a kid, and anything that was related to Africa was shameful. And I had this epiphany in that moment, and this happened maybe a couple of weeks ago. I said, that's what it is. It's taking the story of our mother nation and framing it in the right way. And so what we have right now is a documentary entitled, and we're playing with the title, but somewhere in the realm of The Glory of Africa, where we'll talk about the history of Africa. And
Well, before you hold on the history, I just hope when you're ready for a pre-show, you'll allow us to pre-show it here via the Global Impact Factor Alliance through some digital means. I hope you'll consider such a thing.
of course,
Because I firmly believe that we are in this space will be the normal going forward.
that's true. That's so true.
You know, so you say so the documentary is looking at the history of Africa, or is it specifically Africa, or the history of African peoples and Africa?
So it is the legacy, the global legacy of Africa. And if we just take a stroll through the global legacy of Africa, as I know that you know, Dr. Rodriguez, Brazil is it's the population on the planet that has the second largest population of the African diaspora. Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
The transatlantic slave trade brought our brothers and sisters to the four corners of the world, really. And there's a history. When you talk about anthropological history and human history, no place, and this is scientific, no place on earth carries the genetics and the history of the human evolution such as Africa. That doesn't reside in Europe. It doesn't reside in the Americas. History of mankind as we know it resides in Africa, and science has already proven that. The history of Africa, as I was saying earlier, in mathematics with the Nshango bone, uh, the legacy of Africa in terms of commodities and the effects that these commodities have on the planet as we know. To be quite honest, the European economy and the American economy is actually dependent on African resources. 60 to 80% of the world's resources actually come out of Africa. It has a history and a legacy of uh, commodity economic wealth that has never been heard of before. The story of Mansa Musa, who was the African king,
Hmm.
and he had so much gold that he gave out his gold to the poor along one of his routes, one of his caravan routes, and it knocked all of the neighboring economies into a recession.
Right, right. But now, when you speak of this, though, do you think, as in going forward, when we speak of Agenda 2063, the aspirations they are seeking for Africa, they've given themselves 2063 to realize most of these. I am saying, though, the COVID-19 has provided a space where the movement, the time span, it can be collapsed. I mean, there's a children's story called Wrinkle in Time, and Wrinkle in Time speaks about the ability, they give an example. If you take a string that's this long, let's see, I get my hand in the picture. So you have this string, use a proper example. So if you take this string right here, so you can see my fingers in the camera. I think you can see it now. There you go.
All right.
So the travel from this side to this side, say however long it takes, you can get there. But the whole concept of moving from point A to point B, imagine though, if you can move it like this, it's the same distance, you just get it immediately. You see the point I'm making?
Right, right,
So
right.
the whole concept of that book was the ability of just, you don't have to, it's called the fifth dimension. Now, I'm not trying to be metaphysical or anything like this. I'm just saying though, under COVID-19, under this cover, many, I think there are opportunities
Mhm.
to do some things differently. I think there's opportunities for us to not fast track, but catch up
Mhm.
in areas that we have not been permitted to participate in. For instance, let me give an example. The economics of the world,
Mhm.
the standard pattern, not just of all the world, but in general, is a very capitalistic
Oh,
approach. One whereby you take all you can get all you can, and can the rest. Meaning, it's a selfish mentality.
it's all about making a dollar. It's
Right.
all about the profit. It's all
And
about.
sometimes we try to give the idea, if Africa could only do that, then we'll be fine. And I'm saying, generally, no, not really. That is not the model. The model is from days gone by. It's what has kept Africa survival. Why we've been able to survive as a people is
Right.
something, there's something in us already to keep us moving one day at a time. Because the people of Africa have experienced the greatest exploitation at every level.
Wow.
At every single level, they've experienced that. I mean, so when you speak of Mansa Musa, and they say if you calculate his wealth, he will indeed be considered the most wealthy person ever. His wealth was so great, and that is a great story. When he gave somebody some trinkets and it disrupt the rest of the economy of all the other countries, which is a pretty amazing. And I think those stories are important, and I think in going forward, I think some of the visions you have in carrying the message, I think for instance, right now I've said in reviewing Agenda 2063, I think there's a significant gap in the agenda. The agenda speaks of the African diaspora once. The word is used once in the document. Yet every aspiration, every goal has the same item, which is insufficient human resources, insufficient financial resources. But if you think about it, Africa has more financial resources than everybody else. But that's their problem. So it has an issue to do with who controls the financial resources and the distribution of that wealth. So I'm thinking when you speak of a controlling the agenda for communication, I know I'm really eager now to get to the history of my company or that was given to me because it has a lot to do with a belief system that's not typical, not the normal approach that you you follow. It's not the standard operating procedure that the capitalist procedure. And I'll just share one quick nugget. I remember when I was when the vision was put upon me, it was also put upon me. Do not worry about money to get what you want to get done, because any all resources you need will be provided. You just step into it. I mean, I'll share with everyone else as once we have the website up. I'll have a few foundational meetings. But I think with you, sir, Mr. Gallion, I truly believe that the talents that you have, the talents your team have, we need to somehow. How do we reach those talents in this space? Because here's what slows us down very immediately. One, we will either have insufficient resources, and because we're using the standard capitalistic approach, we are not too often willing to become a partner, become a team member, so to speak, so then you can access the resources as a team. So basically, if you are trying to achieve goal X, okay, and I'm trying to achieve goal X, rather than us going about it separately, if we go over it together,
Right.
then the cost to get there is now we'll share whatever that cost might be,
Of
and
course.
we also benefit from whatever that goal X was.
Of
And I
course.
think that's part of the complexity that's taking place in Africa. I think part of Africa in the 55 nations have been, to some degree, after the Berlin Conference of 1894, they've been put in a spiral of distrust. They've been put in a spiral of either be like us and you're better than they are. So you create a venue of distrust, a venue of war. Then of course, if you can make you rich enough that you may be willing to subdue your own people and murder your own people. So that's a real challenge. I mean, I've been listening to Malema from South Africa lately, and Lumumba, the professor, and to listen to these persons speak, they're really saying basically we can do this together if we just change our concept of wealth, of value, and if we come to the place where, which is my new term, not my new term, it's been for the past year, primum non nocere, which means after all, do no harm. And I'm taking that approach in everything I do. If you take that approach, it doesn't make a difference what's your religion, your gender, all of these things that create us to be separate. No, that's your personal stuff. But my posturing is to do no harm. And I think the one Africa, the one diaspora, the one unity, which I believe is what Dr. Arikasha Boriko has been speaking to, it requires some degree of not letting our God, but some degree of our motive can't be to get rich.
Of
Because
course.
if we have a get rich motive, that means we'll have to exploit many people.
Of course.
And trust me, many persons, you, I, and others we don't even know, will be offered opportunities to take advantage if that will allow, quote unquote, the man to succeed, so to speak, if you know what I'm saying. So I think part of your challenge is always going to be to maintain integrity, to maintain equity. If you think of America, you know, the ambassador said America, oh no, the Africa can look at America and the United States of America. In its purest sense, it's a good model if it lives by it. We the people. If you just think of that preamble, we the people, we have all these unalienable rights. But then if we have all these rights from the get-go, why do we have all these special laws to say we can use them? You know,
Right.
liberty and justice for all.
Right.
And again, so I mean, I think if we use all the good stuff from America, we
Right.
might be okay. But if we just use the greed stuff, it's something different.
Right.
But listen, sir, I'm looking forward to the move that I know we will be making with Ras Giacomo, irrespective of how we do it. I think there's a movement happening globally right now, and
Wow.
it's just a matter of if we can join it.
Wow.
There was a right now Africa is being challenged by China. When I say challenge, I mean in making right choices. In the global space, there's China, and if you just blink, and I say a blink is 10 years and blink three times, just 30 years ago, China was a very poor country,
Right. Exactly.
very poor, and
Exactly.
masses of people. If you used to see children in China in those pictures, pictures come on the TV screen, give them some money. That used to be kids in India and
Wow.
China. The only kids you see now is these little black kids with flies in their eyes and stuff somewhere in Sudan or somewhere in North Africa. It's sub-Saharan Africa. The massive majority of people in poverty lives in sub-Saharan Africa. That's where the concentration of this poverty is located. I think they say approximately 75 million people are living below what they have less than what is need to have a life that's called the health and the quality of life. They don't have it.
Wow.
But that didn't used to be the case. So what happened? I mean, there was always poor. I mean, the Bible tells that the poor will have with us always. We'll have that. But this is beyond poverty. You know. But the point I want to make is China
Right.
was able to figure it out and move more people out of poverty in 10 years than any other country. Two countries, well, the next country did the same thing was India.
India as well. You're right.
India did the same, yeah, oh man, you don't see those little kids in Delhi and in the markets and stuff like, those
And
poor little kids.
for let's not forget Singapore, Dr.
Yeah.
Rodriguez.
You don't see, now it's only every time you show a crying baby and, it's somebody in Africa somewhere.
Right.
But I think what we say, I said to say that we know we can change. We know, and when I say change, we can move masses of people to a better quality of life on the continent. But I think it will take the diaspora and it will also take the African leaders and them, in my opinion, to recognize that the diaspora, people like you and I, are able to help in bring us in the conversation. Don't
Right.
exclude us. Now, and that may even help you into being more unified because as the diaspora, you know I have an allegiance to Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, to Zambia, Zimbabwe, to South. I'm saying? We don't have an allegiance to any one of them because we are part of all of them.
Oh my God.
You see what I'm saying?
Dr. Rodriguez, you just blew my mind. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Never
You
thought of
see?
it that way.
So we don't have, so if you come to us, we don't have all those barricades and barriers
Wow.
because that is the one significant piece of Agenda 2063 is Africa recognizing national sovereignty, but removing these walls of separation,
Right.
so to speak. You know, because I mean, so the good piece of the United States of America, hey, if we can go to Hobby Airport or IH and go up to California. We can choose then to go to Illinois. We can go south North Dakota. We can go up to the East Coast, West Coast. We can go everywhere we want to.
But what's causing that, Dr. Rodriguez? Can we talk to the reasoning behind why there are?
Well, it's simple. I mean, the cause began with the Berlin Conference in essence. If you can create divisions of people, you remember the regular statement, divide and conquer. It's the same basic principle. Divide and conquer and tell one group of nations, well, you are better than them. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you some extra money. So once you have fractured the nation sufficiently, you've created that faction. So all of a sudden, like the ambassador said very eloquently, now you've broken out to these smaller nations. No one of them have the power to stand up. But just imagine if they just decide, and right now that's why the Africa Free Trade Agreement is such a big deal. And part of the concern the ambassador is raising, many people are raising, are we putting something in place for a mass exploitation of the nation again? Are we setting ourselves up for another massive exploitation? So that's why right now the unified Africa, a unified diaspora, because it's almost as though Africa needs a god, and the god for Africa might be the diaspora. And I can give you an example. One of our names, the Mickey Leland, while he was alive with us, his focus was on hunger. Mickey Leland did lots of work in Africa. The book written recently by Dr. Talton, but he did point out that while Mickey was highlighted the need for food to overcome hunger, he never spoke about the political issues in Africa at the time. And that probably some people believe why he didn't. It was probably bigger than him to deal with in Africa, because if you think of during that time, right here in America, see, we are still as a people in Black America in particularly, we are still trying to fight to get certain basic civil rights still operational. So Mickey did what he, I believe, with food, he brought the global focus on hunger, which he did. But I'm saying this though, right now, with the intelligence of the diaspora, we have an opportunity if members of the AU and these international bodies for those 55 nations recognize, bring the diaspora in, because Africa is broken up into the regions. 5 regions is in Africa itself, and the sixth region is the diaspora. Bring the diaspora into the conversation. And they've been working on this, which I didn't fully realize since back in 1960s. But if you roll the tape back even further, the African Union began in the early 1900s. And if you think of it, there have been many persons saying Africa needs to be unified. At this unified Africa is an Africa that can be exploited. And we have like 3 minutes left. I'm gonna give you the last word. Oh man, I'm using the guy from is that what he said on TV? The last word? Is it Lawrence O'Donnell? Give someone the last words. Forgive me. So I hope that's not copyright. I hope I don't get an email, because every time I have a talk, I get an email from YouTube telling me, "Hey, you copyrighted. You play some music and it's copyrighted." So it's
Oh,
no problem. Just let us zip it out your talk. But listen, what I'm saying though is that there is a potential opportunity right now today that we can change this game. In COVID-19, it's the space that we give them. That's why I'm so committed and convinced Ambassador Sherbury Quo has the voice, has the charisma to
yeah.
make this change happen. What I will say, what she's, if anything, that she's lacking, the organization is lacking the operational ability to bring it to bear. So I am just hoping that we members of the diaspora can come to the forefront in helping the ADDI to move forward
Wow.
in helping us achieve this goal. Listen, sir, we have 2 minutes left, and I'd like to give you the 2 minutes to close, and you've been so kind to be on. Mr. Anthony Gallion, you can give us your thoughts, and please give us even some ideas of how we can spread and increase the viewership of our videos. And generally, our videos go on YouTube. We do a little post production, and quickly, as the young man in Tanzania, we give him a shout out. Make Africa great. If I send my video, I have about maybe 5,000 views before the end of the week. If I put it in my station, I get like 4. How does he do it? I have no idea. Mr. Guardian is on you.
Wow. Well, thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. It's as I sit here and I listen to that, the inner dialogue, the inner questions that I have within myself is, what can we do about it? You know, what can we do about it? How can we bring about a solution? What is the solution? And I believe it's probably why I spent the last 4 years of my life obtaining a degree where I got my degree in it being in radio, television, and film. I just believe a large part of the answer is in exactly in what we're doing right now, is getting that story out. Uh, what I find is there's a common misconception, even within the diaspora. Africa is still a mysterious place to them. It's still in their minds a mysterious place. So if we can organize and uh, begin to tell these stories, whether they be through newspapers or documentaries or webinars, the information has to get out, and it has to be in alignment with where the diaspora is. And the diaspora is in the technology. And I believe that's really
Well,
I'm going to go a bit economic. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I was looking at some economic research earlier today. And thought to myself, I was looking at all of the markets and the sectors, and all of the European nations are down. A lot of the Asian nations are down. But when you get to the African nations, their markets are up and if not even thriving in this opportunity. When you look at the American markets, the S&P is poised for another downturn more extreme than what we've experienced back when the pandemic first happened. But if you look at the sectors, healthcare sector and technology sector, those sectors are truckling along pretty well. So looking at that data, shows where the economy is headed. It's headed towards the technology. So I believe that the COVID-19 pandemic offers an opportunity to get your narrative, your message out to more people at a much more cost efficient rate, and who are more creative than the African people.
on that, I agree. So you've actually given me the agenda. It's been on the agenda for a bit. It's called Stories of Migration. Some
Wow.
stayed, some left. It's a journal that I think can go on and on, where persons can tell their stories, where we want to hear not just from academics, but from the kit and kin, meaning the person on the street, just a regular man. So I think I would be calling upon you to help in bringing that to reality, and I'll send that to you. So listen, people, it's been a great evening. I'm thankful to Mr. Gallion. I hope whoever gets the tape enjoys it. I will again send it over to Make Africa Great. He will clip it, do a few things. The next thing I know, 5,000 persons have seen it. How he pulls it off, I'm not sure, but I'm thankful to him. Thank you again, Mr. Gallion. We will talk again very soon. We have many things to talk about.
Rodriguez. Thank you,
Take
sir.
care. Bye bye. And we out.
All right.